Greetings, sacred beings. Welcome to Sacred Her Story podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Natasia. And today, for our Sacred Her Story guest speaker, we have this amazing, talented woman, Victoria Finch, known as the Heart Healer, who is a storyteller, songwriter, and healing voice who helps people find strength inside their own story. After walking through childhood trauma, emotional neglect, deep depression, and rebuilding her life from the ground up, she discovered that the very chapters she once wanted to hide were the ones that carried healing power. Today, Victoria shares raw, faith rooted conversations about resilience, identity, and becoming whole through story, music, and truth. She helps others see that what nearly broke them may be the very thing that makes them powerful. And I am so honored to have you here today, Victoria, to share your story, to share your wisdom. You are such a light. So thank you. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. I'm just honored because we're here having this conversation and I'm like, let's share. Let's just record, right? Because your journey is so wow, many of us can relate to. So we can start anywhere. I mean, you do so much storytelling, songwriting, and healing voice. And, you shared through childhood trauma. This is where it brought you, So where does this story begin? Any part of it, wherever you want to share, like what happened?
Where do we start?
Where do we start? Yes, and you could just guide the way. Where do we start?
Yeah,
Where do you want
yeah.
to start?
I believe that I need to start when I was about 2 years old, because that's where my earliest memory of not feeling like I was wanted or not feeling like I was loved. And that really set the course, I do believe, of my life. When
Hmm.
I was about 2 years old, we lived in a home that was about 900 square feet, and there were six children, two adults, and I didn't have a place because I was the youngest, meaning I didn't have a room, I didn't have a crib, I had really nothing that I thought was mine as a child. And a lot of times we don't understand how that can affect a child when there's older siblings always doing something, coming and going, and they have their lives, and you're just sitting there like, who am I? And I remember when I was about 2 years old, I was in my parents' room, which is where I was most of the time, because with three bedrooms, my sisters had a room and my brothers had a room. And my parents asked me to leave the room and to go visit my sisters. I went to my sister's room and they told me to get out. So I went to my brother's room and they told me to get out. And here I am. I'm 2 years old. Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah.
And if you're a parent, you can just imagine a child not knowing where to go. Nobody wants me. So the only thing my little 2 year old mind knew to do was to go sit by my parents' door. So here I was, and I can see it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Here I was, knees drawn up, head in the knees, feeling unloved, unwanted. And that little girl sat by her parents' door for 5 decades, 50 years, being in and out of depression, anxiety, being in relationships where, you know, I wasn't treated well because who would want me anyway? I'll take anything to make somebody like me, to notice me. And I became an overachiever, as many people who become overachievers because we want to be validated. We don't know how to find our own validation. So we look for the outside. I've got awards, I've got certifications. I'm a master clinical hypnotherapist. I'm trained in cognitive behavior therapy, emotional freedom techniques. I'm part of the International Board of Coaches and Practitioners. I have all this stuff, but it never felt enough for me. Fast forward to 2017. I'm sitting on the side of the bed, not caring if I woke up the next day. Who would miss me anyway? So I have my antidepressants, as I've had for many years, along in and out, and I picked up those pill bottles. Now here's the thing. I wouldn't call it suicidal ideation. I would call it, who cares if I wasn't here the next day? So I picked up the pills, I put them in my, and I get ready to put them in my mouth. It wasn't even me. I felt like it was someone else. My children are outside making jokes, and I couldn't even find the joy in my own children's laughter.
Mhm.
I took the pills, I poured them in my hand, get ready to put them to my mouth, and I heard a voice, like you and I speaking right now. I heard this voice sitting by me, and this voice said to me, "I made you on purpose for a purpose, and this is not it."
Mhm.
And I know in my heart of hearts that was the voice of God.
Mhm.
You call it the creator, you call it the universe, you call it Allah, you call it what you want, but it was the voice of the divine.
Mhm.
And I knew at that moment I had a heart issue and I had to get busy. I got up, I poured those pills out. I started studying, I started learning, I started listening to great voices like Les Brown, Wayne Dyer, Louis Hay. I started listening to these great voices that uplifted me. And I was online and I came across a famous hypnotherapist. And she was given a free session and she did something called regression, where you are able to go back to that first moment of unloved. And so I was able to go back there to that little girl. And it's like, what would you say to her? Was she loved? What was happening in her life at that time? So I went back and I just knew I had a heart issue. And that's when I was given my mission to heal the world one heart at a time. So I sought my own healing through hypnotherapy. That led me to become a master clinical hypnotherapist and all the other modalities that I eventually got certified in. And today I know I may only be a drop in the ocean, but I am the ocean.
Mhm.
Because I know right now I am strong, I am powerful, I am seen, I am heard. And it is my mission to make sure that others know that they are powerful, seen, and heard.
I love that. S- Wow. It really hit when you said I had a heart issue. And how many of us have this heart issue and feel like we were unloved? So
Yeah.
tell us more about this regression stuff. Like, how were you able to, like, what did it do? Like, how did you feel afterwards from that experience?
So the thing is, as when I realized I had a heart issue, that's when I became the heart healer as well.
Mhm.
That's when I became known as a heart. That was given to me by spirit. And in the regression, what happens is that you're able to take people back to that moment and they're able to see that moment. And I've done this a lot of times. One of the things that's real easy to explain it is the chair exercise, where you're sitting, you take a few deep breaths, and you go back and you go and you talk to that child. What would you say to that child with her knees up? You would tell her she's loved.
Yeah.
Because later, it just came to the point to where my siblings are older. They had their lives. It wasn't that they didn't love me. I was just a baby, right? But my 2-year-old brain didn't understand that.
Right.
And then, because I wanted to please so much, I was molested by a family member. That started very young. I'd say somewhere between 7 and 9 years old. Don't remember exactly. And that lasted. I was groomed. That's another episode. So for me, I didn't even know it was wrong. I was that well groomed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't even know until I became an adult. And I'm like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
This is not how this is supposed to go. So I was being molested during that whole time as well.
Mm.
And so being able to have the conversation from the place of healing and no longer the place of the wound. So you go and you talk to that 2-year-old and you say, "You're loved." It's not that they don't love you, but they have school and studies and friends. And
Mhm.
then you go to that grade schooler because you look different from everyone. Your hair is different, your skin is different. So they want to, they want to bully you and they want to talk about you. And even though, my mother says, "Oh, they're just jealous," it's okay. You don't feel that. So it just kind of starts adding up after a while,
Right.
right? So now you go and you talk to that child and say, "You know what? You are beautiful just as you are. You
Mm.
are unique." So then we move up to that teenager with a broken heart, and we move up to that young adult. And then you go in and what would you say to them? And it's very freeing, very freeing.
So did you do that with each age, like each age group?
So for me, I do that in my
Yeah.
practice now, but for me, I am very good at finding out that moment. I'm highly trained in finding that moment. So you don't necessarily have to go through all of the stages unless somebody really needs it and things have happened. You can go to that first moment. And for me, sitting on the by my parents' door, I went there and there was still something just not right. And I still don't feel loved even after that session. And so then I did another hypnotherapy session that I went back. And what happened was my father came out of his room. I was able to remember that. He came out of his room. He picked me up, and I can tell you, he had his boxers on, he had his brown robe on, and he's walking me up and down the hallway saying, he called me baby girl to the day he died, and I was 35 years old. He's like, "I didn't know you were there." And that was my release. Because what I learned during that session was I was so busy feeling unloved, I had missed the love that was all around me. I mean, my family loved me. And but my 2-year-old, because emotion, we remember the pain. We're wired to remember the pain. We're
Mm.
not wired to remember happy times a lot of times, because
Mm.
our amygdala protects us. So
Yeah.
I do work with clients and I do a lot of regression work with them.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story and vulnerability, and especially like with the molestation, like how was that going back to that moment for you with the regression?
Well, it allowed me to accept that it wasn't my fault and I
Mhm.
wasn't doing anything wrong. You
Mhm.
take a child and you teach children things, that child's going to do it. They're going to think it's okay.
Mhm.
So, in my work, the first thing that we have to do is self-forgiveness.
Mm.
That's the first thing. There is no healing without forgiveness. So, having to go back and forgive myself and know that it wasn't my fault, whether I was a knowing participant or not. I mean, I was groomed, you know?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was hard. That was hard to talk about. I didn't talk about that for years. I kept it very close. I told my mother when I was about 13 years old, and she confronted the molester. And of course, he's like, "Well, you went and told your mother. Don't tell your mother again, or I'm never going to like you again." So I want to please people because people don't like, I want to be loved and liked.
Yeah. So how are you now with the people pleasing? Is it just like I'm doing me, I
I
know?
turned 50 and I'm telling you what, talk about freedom. I don't even say I'm recovering people pleaser anymore. I live my life full out, full throttle. I am not responsible. And that's something, I'm trained too, right? And that's some of the things that we understand just as being a hypnotherapist and a cognitive behavior therapy. We are not responsible for other people's feelings.
Hmm.
And so, so I have the lived experience and then I have the clinical side of me. So for me, I just keep it stepping.
Right. I love that, because like so many of us are people pleaser, especially as women, we just want to be loved. And so with that whole people pleasing, because now it's like you said, I turned 50 and it's like whatever. But prior to that, like, was there anything where it was like, what am I doing here? Or was it at 50 where you're like, okay, I'm done with the people pleasing?
Yeah, really, something happens mentally when you turn 50. Because I've talked to other women. I'm 64 years old now. And you just reach a point to where things just don't matter to you as much as they used to. They
Hmm.
just don't, you know. And
Yeah.
many women in their 50s and 60s still wear that mask. They're still pleasing.
Hmm.
They're still wanting to get along. They're still diminishing themselves. I wrote another song that says, I told my winds like whispers. And
Mm.
there's still a lot of women in their 50s and 60s that are doing that haven't learned to put their oxygen mask on first. But that's what healing is. And it's not like one day you're healed. It's a process. There are still some things that might come up, and I'm like, oh, why did I react that way? And then because I am who I am, I go back, I psychoanalyze myself and say, oh, I remember. Oh, she reminds me of that little girl that pushed me on the playground and pulled my hair.
Mm.
And then I
Yeah,
let it go. And then I let it go. It's the power of letting go.
love that. And sometimes letting go is so hard though.
It is hard if you don't replace it with something else.
Mm.
See, what we tend to do is that we leave a hole. We say, I'm not gonna people please anymore. I'm gonna stand up for myself, right?
Hmm.
But what are you replacing that with? Self-confidence,
Mm.
self-acceptance, self-validation. See, we only do half the story, and that's why it's important to speak to someone like myself or someone who understands that you can't leave that hole. That's why you go back to doing what you were doing because you didn't replace it with anything.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. It's what are you filling that emptiness with? And how often we feel it, we go back to the same thing, right?
Because
For
that's
me,
what we know.
I can think, yeah, yeah, that's incredible. Just bringing that up front and sharing your wisdom. So tell us more about the storytelling part. Like, how did you know that this was what you were doing? Like, how long have you been doing it with the storytelling?
I'm a trained speaker. I've been trained by the best of the best.
Okay.
And when you're a trained speaker, you understand story arcs, right? You have the beginning, you have the middle, you have the end. And as a hypnotherapist, you understand how to use metaphors because it's all about the story because you want people to listen, you don't want people on their guard. So the storyteller telling part has always been part of me, but I didn't know why it was so easy for me to become a speaker. I didn't understand because there's an intuitiveness to telling stories so that they land. And then there's a technical side. And last year in March, 2020, no, 2025 in March, I had a situation that really saddened me. It really saddened me. And I just started writing. And in a span of about 3 weeks, I wrote almost 30 songs. It just poured out of me. It just poured out of me. And when I went back and looked at those songs, I realized they all had a story. They all had a transformation. This is what I was feeling. This is what I went through. And this is who I am today. So I have this crazy ability now is you can give me any random topic And I can just about tell a story about it. I'd say I can, let me give myself some leeway here. Let's say I could do it 95% of the time. And it could be any random topic. And I'll come, oh my gosh, here she goes. And I'll come up with a life lesson out of it.
All right. Becoming.
Becoming.
Becoming her.
Ooh, becoming her.
Yes.
Yeah. She didn't realize she was hurting. She went through life day in and day out, doing what she does, caring for parents, caring for children, showing up for her community, showing up for everyone but herself. And it wasn't till one day she looked in the mirror and asked herself, what am I doing? I'm tired. Some days I don't feel like I can move forward anymore. I don't know how to change. I don't know how to become anything other than I already am. And then, just like Simba when he was on the cliff, and Scar had taken over the Pride Land, and
Mm.
Simba's on that cliff, and he's dejected, and he's feeling low, and he's like, I don't know what else to do. I'm done. I'm tired. And Mufasa shows up in the cloud, and he said, Simba, remember who you are. And once she remembers who she is, she becomes who she needs to be. She lets go of who she is so that she becomes who she was meant to be.
Oh my gosh, I felt that. Ooh, I don't know about those who are listening to this, how they're gonna feel this story, but I'm like, that's my story.
Mm,
That's my story too,
yeah.
you know.
And this was not rehearsed.
No, it isn't. No, this is not rehearsed at all. Like I, and I love the Simba analogy there, even though it wasn't Mufasa who told me, but it was still like this voice that was like telling me, wake up, remember, why are you doing this, right? And that just flowed out of you so amazingly. I mean, you were not kidding. Can I give you another one?
Sure. If you have time, I don't know how long this episode needs to
You know what? I give
be.
it, I say like 45 to an hour. I like
Okay,
people to share their story and themselves. I just think it's so,
sure.
you're so talented and so full of wisdom, Victoria. I'm like,
Oh,
how can we
thank
pull
you.
it all out of you, you know? And, I was like thinking, I go, wait, you're 50. And then you're like 64. And I go, wait, how? You did, like, because like 50 was like this turning point for you.
Hmm. Yes.
So that's, and then here you are 64, so inspiring, and this is like teaching me and telling me like you can always be an inspiration. You don't
You
ever
can.
have
You
to,
are. Not
yeah.
that you can be, you are.
Thank you for correcting. Because yeah, I am.
Yes.
And and share with us what, like, I know you coach and you do a lot of things. You said you travel a lot and you speak and you do all these things. So what does that all look like for you? When did it started? Did it start at 50 or did it still take time? Did you just started doing this recently?
Um, it took me about 4 years. I started looking into van life, RV life, car life about 4 years ago. And I thought, my kids are grown. Let me look into this. And I went to Texas to visit a friend, and there was something about the wide open space. It just like the land spoke to me.
Mm.
And I came home and I told my daughter, I'm selling a house and I'm moving to Texas. And she says, Mom, I don't want to move because she had moved in a year before. Now, this is 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. She had moved in a year prior to that because she wanted to save money to buy her own home. And I said, well, the house is for sale. And so I gave her her and my niece, a bunch of equity that I have in the house for their down payment so that their mortgage wouldn't be too high. And my daughter bought the house, so I now live with my daughter. And so during that time, I started looking into this car life and the freedom of the road and everything. And I got a 2013 uh, Chevrolet Traverse, named her Stella. For those who don't know, Stella got her groove
Stella
back.
got a yes. I
So
love
I named her Stella and I retrofitted her. I put a mattress in and I would do these little short trips where I'd go for like 2 or 3 days, just kind of test it out, learning along the way. And now I have a 2023 Jeep Wagoneer and she's retrofitted. Her name is Journey. She's retrofitted to sleep in. I show people this vehicle and they're amazed. I wish I had a picture to show you, but
it.
she's got everything. She's like a studio apartment on wheels. And I take her, and we've been to Florida and Georgia, and stay in the Mountain West from New Mexico to Colorado. In fact, I'm leaving here in a few days back out to the Mountain West. And I just hang out in her, meet people, and it's just a wonderful life. I I'm my company, I'm the founder of Avalon Executive Assistants, and we are a marketing PR company. And my team is actually in the Philippines. And I built that company at the tail end of COVID, sitting right here in my home office, never set foot in the Philippines. So now I've been to the Philippines a few times, to visit my team and all, but so I'm free. And it's interesting too, because people will say things like to me like, I know you're busy. I'm like, I am not busy.
I said that to you.
Half the time I don't even know the day of the week.
Wow. So it sounds like here you have this business, but you're also in retirement because you're like, I'm not busy.
Yeah, most of the time. Okay, there's something's popped up on the screen here. Oh, it's gone.
Yeah. It was your hand,
Yeah.
but it
I'll
wasn't.
keep my hands down. Here we go.
No,
Yes.
it's all good. No, it's just a system, right? That's incredible. Did you ever thought of doing this like when you were younger? I mean, I know you had the trauma, but
No,
do you remember a dream that you had when you were younger of what you wanted to do?
I've always wanted to help people. Since I was a little girl, I have had this sense about people. I
Mm.
remember when I was a little girl and I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I would, touch people. Like I might pat their shoulder and I'd say, it's going to be okay. It won't hurt for long. And they'd tell my parents, how did she know? And my parents like, know what? And there's like my shoulder. I've had shoulder pain. I just came into the world like this.
Wow. Wow. And our kids are gifted and they forget,
They
but
forget.
yeah. And and then hopefully maybe it comes back, right?
That's right. Remember who you are.
Right? That time of remembrance. I have a question. Your family, because you have this big family, and here you are the baby. What's your relationship with your siblings now?
Oh my gosh, we are just best friends. There's only three of us left of the six children, but we have always been best friends.
Mm.
Because again, I was so busy not feeling loved, I missed the love I was all around me. I mean, my brothers were protective of me, my sisters. I mean, it wasn't them, it was my perception.
Mm.
I came from a very loving family, very loving. In fact, sometimes my brothers would get on my last dang on nerves. right? But but I didn't feel it because I would hear things like, I don't want to babysit her again. You know, you can't blame a 12-year-old for not wanting to babysit a 2-year-old. But I did because I didn't know any better. But now I see it, they were kids.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So when you were an adult, was it did you guys get closer and were you able to hang
Oh,
out?
we were always close. I just felt unwanted
I see.
because I felt like, first of all, they passed me around like I was a hot potato. I was always on somebody's hip. In fact, I didn't even think I could walk. It was until I was about 40 years old. I asked my sister, I said, did I have a disability when I was little? She said, why? I said, because I don't remember walking. She said, because you wouldn't walk, and if we left you, we know that we would get in trouble. So we had to, and you were, she says, and you were a fat baby, so we had to keep passing you around. Now I'm thinking, you're passing me around because I can't walk, and you don't want to be bothered with me. She's like, no, we couldn't leave you.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. I love that. That is so crazy with the how you're bringing up perspective and it's like, yeah, no, this is what it is. And it's like a wake up like,
Exactly.
yeah, oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing this. This is so great because it's just kind of like, all right, let's think about it. What's the perspective here? What was
Yeah,
actually true?
exactly.
Right.
And I want to be real careful when I have these conversations because I work with people who truly live in families where they're not loved. I worked with one woman whose father was an alcoholic, extremely abusive to her mother and to her. I mean, she was afraid that he was going to unalive her. And she lived through this as a child. So I want to be very careful and not to diminish people because trauma is real
Mm-hmm.
and it hurts and it takes time and forgiveness and help for you to be able to move past it. And there are things, do you apologize? When you apologize a lot, that's a trauma response. Loud noises bother you, that's a trauma response. We have so many trauma responses that we don't even realize that we do. If you're quiet, if you're really quiet spoken and you just always feel like you have to um, diminish yourself, that's trauma saying, I can't make myself too big or too loud. So I want to really make sure that people understand that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up front too, because yeah, we're laughing and joking about it,
Mhm.
and able to see this. But there was, I mean, you also shared some real trauma that you had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
With the molestation and yeah.
Yeah. So that's crazy. How was it? Well, it's like, I mean, the stuff happens, right? How was it like in your 20s and 30s growing up?
Um, it took me many years to admit this, but I was very promiscuous because I felt my body was the only thing I had to make people like me. And I still feel a little embarrassed by that, but not so much because we do what we do with what we have,
Right.
right? And so that's why I speak about it now because there's so much shame around so much of our trauma because very often we think it's our fault.
Mm-hmm.
If only I wasn't so loud, my parents might still be together. If only I had listened, my dad wouldn't drink so much. And we carry that like it's our fault, right? So I had to let that go. I had to let that I became who I became because of who I was. But standing here now as a 64-year-old woman, she's gone. She's dead. She's no more. And I love her and I respect her. Because had I not gone through what I had gone through, I would not be the woman who sits here today with the mission to heal the world one heart at a time.
Mm. Mm. That's amazing. Yeah. I love how, your everything that you've been through has shaped you here and you bring it back. You're like, I love that woman. And that would not have, if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't be here now. And then to relate to those who've been there, right? Because your
Mhm.
experience, you're able to be relatable.
Mhm. Yeah. I feel people deeply. I'm out here hugging trees. I'm hugging trees and walking barefoot in the snow, and people are calling me country bumpkin.
My goodness. I would not walk in the snow though with
And
no shoes.
everybody says that to me. I don't stay out there. Yeah, it's just this thing where I'm very connected to the earth,
Mm.
very connected to the earth.
Yeah, I'll hug trees though. I'm with you on the hugging
There
tree.
you go. We hug trees in the spring. You just do you, boo.
Yeah.
If the snow's not your thing, that's why I'm trying to get out of Indiana.
Well, I did go what is it with the snowshoes? I went
Hmm.
on a hike recently with it, but it is so cold,
It's
you
very
know.
cold.
But I love that and you're so free-spirited. Like it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, you know. So what about in your 40s? What was life like then?
For my 40s, I call my 40s, I shouldn't call them this, but I do call them my lost years because I had my first child when I was 35 years old. So I had my children at 35, 40, no, 30, 35, and 40. So during my 40s, I was almost 300 pounds.
Mm,
I was, it was all about the kids. It was
mm,
all about the children. It was, three or four sports that they were each in, team mom at the baseball field. It was all about them. And I call them my lost years only because there wasn't a whole lot of me during those years.
mm.
It was all about the children, and they're wonderful. One's an engineer, one works as a assistant instructor working in special education. My daughter, she's been on her job for 7 years, and she loves the Lord, so it was worth it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I love how you shared your age too, because sometimes we're like, I know I have some friends who are like, I'm older. Is it too late for me to have children? And it's like, no.
It's not too late. Well, I don't know. If you're 70, you may not be trying to
Well,
have a child, but
yeah, but yeah, they're not 70, saying I think at a certain age you're kind of like,
yeah.
it's
But but for the most part, no. No. And that's what I do a lot with women that are over 40, 50, and in their 60s. And I really want to show them that it's not too late. Don't let the world tell you that because you have gray hair, which my hair will be purple next week. Don't let the world tell you that your gray makes you old. No, that's wisdom. That's wisdom. Though every gray hair on my head was earned.
preach. I got a couple coming in,
Yeah.
and then my daughter likes to pick at them. So I'm like, but yes, I love that. And you're so inspiring with this, with, everything that you're doing. I love the part how you're like, you sold your house. You said, no, I'm going to do this. You know, what is it? Not RV, car
Car
living,
camping.
car
I live
camp.
in my car.
Yeah. And how often are you out there on the road, like just doing, doing what
When I leave in, I'm thinking I'm leaving in mid-April or May. I haven't decided yet, and I won't be back till October.
really?
Yeah.
And where are you going?
Colorado, New Mexico. I'll be in the Mountain West. I
Okay.
have a goal to climb my first 14er. So Colorado has 58 or 53, depending on what you count, mountains that summit over 14,000 feet. And I'm setting my goal to climb my first one or to hike my first one by the time I turn 66 next year. I'll be 65 in August. So that won't be my first one. Pikes Peak is where I got my eye on. So we'll see.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So when you're going out on the road and stuff, are you just sightseeing? I thought it was working or like you're speaking
Well,
live and
lucky
stuff.
for me, I have an international business, so it is working because my car is my office. And I meet clients,
Corrected.
and I go to meetings along the way, if there's a business luncheon or something. So yeah.
Okay, that clarifies it. I'm just kind of like,
But it's not, yeah, it's business expense because I've made it a legal business expense.
yeah.
No one expects you to work, not even the IRS, 24/7. So if I'm in Colorado, because that's a good place for me to get clients, and
Yeah.
my car is an office.
I'm listening. I'm learning right now. I'm all, how can I make this a reality in my life?
Yeah, everyone can. You can if you want to. You have to learn. We talked about letting go.
Oh,
You have to learn to detach from things.
mm,
When I lost the weight, one of the hardest things for me to do was get rid of my bigger clothes
mm,
because I still was that bigger person. And then I was buying clothes that were too big for me, even though the mirror said something totally different, 80, over 80 pounds down, I think like 87 pounds down. And that was good for me to let go
mm.
and learning to live without things that you don't need. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to live your life, but I don't want to give up my shoes. I'm like, then you don't want to live my life.
Yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about releasing and, what did it really take for you to say, okay, I'm going to travel? You sold your house. Would you say that's a must in order to do something that you do, or was that
Oh
something
no,
you just wanted to do?
that was 4 years ago. That was myself selling my house was good because I didn't want the responsibility of the yard, the house, the upkeep. I wanted to be free. I didn't want responsibilities.
Wow.
But there are people who live my lifestyle that I still have a home office. This is my home office. This is my home base that I
Mhm.
can come to. But some people are just out there. They don't have a home base. They live in their RV or their car or their van. And I have a friend that I met, and she's been on the road for 11 years. She's 71 years old. And
It's
that's her
just,
life. But she does have a 500-acre farm though, but she doesn't go to it.
but she has it.
Her brother runs it,
That's great.
and
Okay.
she's trying to sell it. So you can definitely have a home base.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I think it's so incredible. And, looking at the big scheme of things, like how does it look like? Like, what does wealth look like to you, right?
Exactly.
So, what does wealth look like to you, Miss Victoria? Do you
Not
feel like
knowing what
you
day of
have
the week it is. Living life. Half the
a-
time I don't know what day of the week it is, and I don't even care. In fact, you already know our little trying to get here. I was like, I'm talking to my brother. I'm in the mall walking because, it's winter. I'm walking and I'm talking to my brother, and we're just chit-chatting and we're planning to have lunch before I leave and whatnot. And then all of a sudden it dawns on me, it's like, I got an interview. What's today? So I come running home so that I can speak with you. I mean, that's wealth to me.
I love that. Did you
That's
think
wealth. It's
that
not
was
money. And in fact, yeah, that's why I'm not busy. Yeah, and this is something that I want to speak about on this.
Yes, please.
You know, as an American, we're told to hustle, push, push, get that $1 million company, that multi-million dollar company and push, 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 right? I don't want a multi-million dollar company because if I had a multi-million dollar company, I would be in meetings. I would be having to read reports all day long. I would have to be able to deal with hundreds of employees. Even when you hire people to do these things, there's a cost to it. There's a lot of people in a lot of big houses that are extremely unhappy. And I only take on a few clients at a time.
Mhm.
And that's not so much, how do I say this? It's not because I need the income, it's because I have a mission. So I built my life around and my business around my how I want to live. What's wealth to me? Wealth to me is being on a mountain and not having a care in the world. I'm not worried about money. I'm not worried about is the grass cut? Is the cable TV man coming today? Because I got to take off work.
Right.
Yeah, that's wealth to me.
Mhm.
Freedom. Freedom is wealth for me.
Mhm. Doing what you love.
Yeah. I mean, my company doesn't do poorly. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm saying,
Yeah.
I've got 5 different brands. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can design your life on how busy you want to be. And when I turned 50, I said by the time I'm 65, I want to be on a beach drinking umbrella drinks without a care in the world.
Mm, I love that. Thank you for sharing your wisdom
You're
and your
welcome.
dreams, the life you're creating and continue to create on your terms. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we close this chapter of Sacred Her story, what is one piece of wisdom, or it could be several, you wish your younger self had known?
Ooh, I love that. I think if I had one piece of wisdom for anyone, is to let them know that they are seen and they are heard and they are loved because you were created. Just the fact that you beat out millions and millions of sperms to be here makes you something. That makes you something. That makes you strong. That makes you resilient. And that makes you loved.
So, what do you feel right now is important? So, that's one piece of wisdom, but what is something you feel that it's important for those who are listening to know as they become?
I see you. I hear you. And you matter.
Thank you for that, Victoria.
You're
Mm,
welcome.
I love that. Is there anything else that you would love to share as we close, before we close?
I think that we've covered a lot of ground.
I think so too. And
You're
I,
going to be splicing this episode. There's so much.
no, this is,
Oh,
it's beautiful. I just love, you shared so much wisdom, so much love on this call, and the beautiful reminders that we matter, you know. So,
yeah.
beautiful souls, if today's story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that you're not walking this path alone, I invite you to follow and subscribe to Sacred Her Story podcast. And also, if you want to connect with Miss Victoria Finch, her information will be in the description. And are there any offerings that that you have, Victoria?
If you'd like to connect with me, you can connect with me at justaskvictoria.com. And I would just love to have a conversation with you. If you're hurting, if you aren't sure, if you're wondering why, let's talk about it. Because I want to hear you. I want you to know you'll be heard. So please reach out at Victoria at justaskvictoria.com because you're not alone and you don't have to go through this alone.
Thank you. So there you have it all. Thank you for joining us for She is Sacred Her. That is Sacred, Highly Exalted Rebel. It is saying yes to ourselves and trusting in our own inner wisdom. And again, Victoria, thank you for sharing your story, your vulnerability, and your wisdom with us.
Thank you for having me.